September 11th at 5:30 p.m. And Chairman Hyde, would you mind saying the prayer?
Father, we thank you for this beautiful day we've had today. We thank you for your many blessings to us. And as we approach this meeting tonight, we pray earnestly for your discernment and judgment and decisions that we make. God, direct us in everything. We pray in thy name. Amen.
Before we approve the agenda, I have 3 items I wanted to add. One was submitted by a citizen. It's the resolution of the County Commission of Sumner County, Tennessee, rescinding Resolution 2202-03, approving an economic impact plan for the Shoe Lane development area. I want to add that as item G under new business. And the second one was Commissioner Boyd had gotten this to me. She had emailed us about this. I guess the Resource Authority last week moved their meetings to meeting time and space, and she wanted us to look at this resolution for encouraging them to hold meetings at this building at time and convenient space to citizens for transparency. So I'm going to have that as item H for the RASCO meeting time. And Commissioner Klein had asked me to add to the agenda, again, discussion on the statement of intent to move forward on the solar lease agreement exploration for the jail roof. And I'm going to have that as item I, without objection. We have an approval to...
So moved.
Second. Commissioner Teacher, approval of Commissioner Show. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 4 is approval of minutes of August 14, 2023.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5th, election of chairman and vice chairman. Chairman Hyde.
Mr. Chairman, personally, I think you have done an amazing job as chairman of the Legislative Committee, and it would be bad on our part, I think, as a committee in judgment if we did any changes. So I very happily, gladly nominate you as chairman again.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Election of vice chairman.
I nominate David Klein.
We have a second for David. Second by Commissioner Show. Any discussion or other nominations?
I would just like to say something about David. You know, David, I think, has been one of the most amazing general operations committee chairman. He's an activist out there doing the things that he should do, and is always adding really good information to this committee. I just commend him as a really good county commissioner.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Mr. Chairman, what was I? Aye.
Statement of intent.
Solar panels. Okay. We were both asking.
All right, recognition of the public. You would come up, Kevin Baker, state your address. Name the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin Baker, 424 80 Wade Road. I want to speak to something on the agenda today. It's right at the top. It says September 11th. 22 years ago, a lot of us were in a much different place. Much different place. And I think about how things have changed since that day. 9/11, you know, we had a lot of words added to our vocabulary. Some 4-letter words. I know my uses of 4-letter words that day were pretty high. But since that day, we learned things like Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, the Patriot Act, the FISA courts. Boy, have we changed, how this country has changed. And I wanted to commend this. I wanted to speak to you all because you're chairman of the committees, all the various committees. You've done a phenomenal job. Just like those first responders that ran into the fire that day, and most of them perished. You've all done that for us citizens, and that doesn't go unnoticed. We need and expect you more than ever now to do that. With new words being added to our vocabulary, like hope and change, election integrity, insurrection, all these things. The fact that we're hearing about pornography in our schools, boy, I was naive back in 2001. But boy, things have changed, and we rely more than ever on our lesser magistrates that you all have decided to fill, to stand in the gap for us. And for that, Mr. Chairman, and all you chairmen, I appreciate everything you do. And I ask and implore you to continue doing that. The citizens of Sumner County need that more than ever. In these 22 years, boy, things have changed. Thank you. God bless you all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Baker. That concludes public comments. All right, for the chairman, I would just say, I guess, and ask, appreciate all that you gentlemen have done the past year as chairman. And I just wanted to take the time just to remind us, if we can, as we're running our meetings, to try to do our best to adhere to Robert's rules and be mindful and cognizant of just try to keep order a little bit. I think it's hard when you're at a table where it's conversational in nature, where it's easy to be more of an open living room format, but definitely it is a business meeting, and we're trying to conduct business in an efficient and timely manner for the citizens. And would encourage you guys to, just as we're to the floor of the commission, as you're doing your chairmanship, to not recognize a member until the member seeks recognition from the chair, just like we're in the main chambers, and we don't get up and start talking about it unless we talk to the chairman, Chairman Hyde. Just kind of saying obtaining the floor. So think of it like getting in the queue, and raising your hand, and that obviously to remind the public, it's not a discussion, an open forum with the public, and so it's public have questions after meetings. Definitely approach your representative and talk to them. But unless it's during public comments or unless we suspend the rules, it's not a time to shout out during a meeting, just to keep decorum and keep order. So just want to encourage you guys, as we're starting a new year fresh for all of us, myself included. Again, it's a little bit of a give and take relationally when you're at a table, and just trying to let things ebb and flow, but also to keep it orderly for the citizens and for us at the table, and making sure we all get in the queue and make sure we seek proper recognition of the chair for all our committees that we're on, and that we hold ourselves accountable. I've called myself out of order before for speaking out of order, so if we catch ourselves to do that. But just want to encourage you guys as chairman, as we go through this next legislative year, to do that on behalf of ourselves and the citizens, and just, you guys are doing great, but we're just always looking to improve. So I don't mean that as a beratement or anything, but just as an encouragement and a reminder during this new year. So, but other than that, I do not have any other part of my report. Report to County Mayor.
No report, Mr. Mayor. I would like to reserve comments for items on the agenda.
Yes, sir, that'd be fine. Old business. Item A, discussion, ECC interlocal agreement, funding compliance. I'll make a motion for discussion.
I'll second.
All right, second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? This is something that came up during the budget cycle. I know it's been under old business, and I want to keep dragging this on, but I would like us to either address this, or if we want to basically defer this until a future date and pull it off the agenda until we're ready to talk about it. I'd be open to entertaining any suggestions as far as, or we can keep it on as an old business item. I just don't want to keep on carrying forward the packet every month and all these materials with it, with this agreement. So I don't think we have time necessarily tonight. We have a full agenda slate. So I'm open to any suggestions on this particular item that came up during budget.
We do need to address this, I think. I mean, we could bump it off a bit, but, I mean, I would like to see it addressed before the next budget cycle, where we've got a few months for that, so maybe consider it at the beginning of the year, January.
So, is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
So a motion
To defer this until January.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Show to defer item A, ECC interlocal agreement funding compliance till January 2024. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will, I guess, legal and then clerk can remind us as far as, we'll make a note for you guys to re-agenda this, and I'll come remember as well for January. So, yeah, so we'll. All right, Resource Authority Agreement. This is the same category to me. I'll make a motion for discussion. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Commissioner Brown, I know you'd asked us to be put on there, is that
Yeah.
something that we can,
Well,
or,
as you know, you've had something from Commissioner Boyd. It's still a state of flux. I mean, it's just moving, and we've got to nail down some stuff first before we can move ahead with what we want to do here as far as this,
so, I'd entertain a moment, would you like to table this until a future date, basically?
Yeah.
Until we're ready for this to
Yeah.
come back, so,
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion for that, to table this.
so move.
All right, motion?
Could I ask a question?
Discussion.
Oh, that's a different.
That's on here under H.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a different discussion.
Okay.
This is going back to the $100,000 that we give them.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
and then we need to also look at putting Portland, Westmoreland, and.
So it's a big.
Yeah, we need to get all those other cities up there in northern Sumner and on this, resolution for the private.
Finally, we have a motion to table this to a future date. So we've got a second by, motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Teacher. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move that off of old business.
Are we using the same January date?
I'm just gonna wait for him to ask me to read it.
Okay.
So that, we made a motion to defer on the, ECC, and this is just a motion to table until a future date, unknown. All right, new business. Item A, Veteran Service Report Presentation. We have Mr. Oki here, so, without objection, I'll let him give his report.
Good evening. I think you see all the accomplishments from the past month. We had a lot of good outreach, particularly with veterans coming back to school at Ball State. We also were up in Portland and working with some surviving spouses. We've been getting quite a bit around the county. The one thing we've done a lot more of lately is we're working with Department of Defense issues. Particularly, we had 3 different veterans who were retirees from the Defense Department, a couple of Army guys and Navy guys. Both passed in their late 80s, and they had surviving spouses, and they had no idea how to navigate the bureaucracy to get their surviving pension benefits, essentially. So we were doing in-home visits quite a bit at the end of last month to try and get these surviving spouses. In fact, I'll be going out tomorrow at noon to help out one of the, I think she's about 89 years old. We're going to be helping her out, like, kind of clearing through the mail, Armed Forces Benefit Administration. She's worried about insurance payments, so she's making her immediate and collecting. So just some of the physical in-home services for that, that population need. We've been doing quite a bit more for whatever reason in the last couple of months. The one thing on there, getting back for sure about from the VA, still questioning how we lost 1,000 veterans in the fiscal year. I owe you more answers than that. I wish I had better. So, we're staying busy and helping our folks. Any questions for us?
Can I ask a question? I appreciate all you do. So how, do we have an outreach to, because I think the one thing that I've seen in the veteran community, especially the older veteran community, is like an unknown benefit of how great, I mean, yes, you provide a lot of services, but I think a lot of that there's a disconnect, especially between that crowd or the crowd that serves one term. It seems like there's a disconnect in those two, on reaching you and knowing that they can actually use you. How do we reach that crowd in Sumner County?
So, for the older crowd particularly, at least 50% of the veterans in the county don't want to even go to the VA. There's a general feeling about, hey, I'm not hurt bad enough for someone else, and save the benefit for someone else. Every single assisted living facility that we have in the county, a lot of times when people go into that, that becomes a need in their lives. Every single one of them has our card. We get calls. I got a call an hour ago, and we're walking through that. So we target those places where a veteran might have to enter into and then need our services. That's one way that we do it. As far as the one-term crowd, we have a regular drumbeat of outreach. So I've been on radio stations in Sumner County. We have a regular newsletter. We work with the Veteran Service Organization to reach out to them. Even the Ball State. I mean, I had a 3-minute pitch to most of the students. It's like, you get all your education benefits through Ball State. anything else you might need when you come see us. So, that plus the word of mouth through our 10 different veteran service organizations in the county. We also have a presence on Facebook that we kind of maintain. And so when folks are looking for veteran services, that's how we try and catch them.
The only reason why I was asking is because I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought a lot of that crowd, especially the older crowd, will maybe be in maybe a church or a Masonic lodge or something like that, some organization. And I thought maybe I didn't help y'all reach through those organizations to the veterans.
We did. So last year I had an intern that came in as unpaid, and she contacted almost all the major churches in Sumner County and made sure that they have our contact information. Some of those churches have specific veteran ministries, and some of them don't. And so we kind of established communications with these churches, but I haven't met with each of the ministers of the organization myself yet.
I appreciate you telling me that.
But that's, I mean, we're certainly open to it. So I think I'll dig back up the church and see.
I met a few folks in my district, and
Okay, good.
I was kind of curious about that reason.
And I appreciate that, because the outreach and getting in touch with veterans is probably our biggest challenge. So I'm always happy that, that's kind of what we want them to know is, hey, did you know that we have veterans that, we can help veterans through Sumner County? And I'm not surprised that many of them don't, but, reaching through churches and is probably something we can increase.
So, last question, just as if when we do meet folks in the community who don't know about what you offer, what's the quickest way to tell them, just like in a passing, how to get a hold of them and what you do?
Calling, we always hand out our phone number. Our phone number is available through the county website. That's probably a good way. If they go to the county website, the veterans, that's probably the fastest way for most of them. And then if nothing else, they shoot us a number, we'll give them a call.
Appreciate it. I talked to them today, so I appreciate that.
I think it's good. All right. All right, next, item B is a resolution for employee complaint procedures. Do you have a motion?
Make a motion to discuss.
Discuss, second by Commissioner Show. Motion by Commissioner Plant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll get with you on this one. I read this. I mean, it seems fine. I mean, I just have some questions, but see, what was the impetus of this?
I'll have to send you a legal for that one. This is a request by legal.
We worked on this with David Rawling to come up with a policy, so we have a chain of command, as it were, for employee complaints, sort of resolving some of these policies that we need to have in place that we don't have at this point. So that's where this came from, was a collaborative effort between our office and finance.
And it's an attempt to rein in the HR aspect, and exactly, but because we're the ones taking the brunt of any new hires and any issues that are going on, they're coming to our office. So David and I have to get together to create some sort of mechanism so we're not duplicating work efforts and things of that nature as well.
It's also a risk management type issue as well, so we can figure out where everything's going.
I'll direct to you, but does that mean complaints about their department are coming to the law department?
I have received some, yes.
Okay, that actually does bring up my next question here, and I understand that you're not equipped for that. I mean, we did make this, we made the decision to, I think it was an appropriate decision to end the HR function, but there, it does beg a question here. If an individual believes that he or she is not being fairly treated or has a complaint within their chain of command, all this goes directly up the chain of command, and so like some way, which you should always do first, but it doesn't leave any other channel for the individual to seek a third party other than, I guess, sue somebody, or escalate immediately and do stuff like go to the press, which we obviously don't want. So, like, you want to give people an appropriate way to deal with their issues before they start, escalating in ways that are probably not productive for anybody. That's kind of worry about this is that it doesn't give it any other outlet other than the chain of command. I don't know if there are any thoughts on that.
I agree, and I would like to consult legal on that. It's pretty tough to go to your supervisor and complain about it.
I don't disagree, and I was trying to remember, we drafted this a while back. I think the intent is going to be to create some sort of method where they've got to go through a process, and if they're getting stonewalled within that hierarchy of who they work for, that it circumvents that, and then eventually at the end of the day it can become an ethical consideration, or excuse me, a complaint consideration of the ethics committee, I believe, or some committee within the purview to have some oversight and dictate some control and action. Because the attempt of all this is to remedy the problem before it becomes a lawsuit, obviously.
Yeah.
And so if it seems kind of vague on that, we can get more specific about creating a specific mechanism if you're getting stopped. But I'm going to need to know it. I don't need everybody coming straight to my office.
Right.
And then that determination being made. I need to know it's worked its way as far as it can.
And it will work if everybody's working in good faith.
They're not going to.
Well, I mean,
Commissioner Hyde has a.
I know people get tired of me saying this, but county government is unlike any other government. It is not like a city council. It's not like a state government. And I think that what the lawyers are trying to do and say is that we have to walk around this gently and receive complaints and try to work with people to resolve them, to prevent lawsuits against the county and so forth, because really and truly, there is very, very little we can do outside the constitutional offices. They can pretty much deal with their employees, whether that's good or bad, I'm not saying, but they can pretty much deal with their employees any way they want to, if they so choose. And so I don't think a third party at this point would even be a viable thing. For one thing, they wouldn't have to deal with it if they didn't want to. And I think the lawyers are probably just trying to do something that will provide an access to express a problem that may be something legally that they can work with the county office holder or something to resolve. So I don't think we can get too technical with it.
well, one, I don't know if you're taking, but Ms. Genome has a comment, and the other one was I understand that too, which that was the whole argument. I understand Mr. Hyde's point, which that was ultimately the reason why we decided that HR didn't really make sense. You know, all that said, a little more verbiage, I think, where Mr. Klein and I are going here to, as best as possible, provide some appropriate outlet as consistent with state law and the structure of county government as we can. And if it can't be done, it can't be done. And if it can't, and we determine that really that going directly at the chain of command is the only way, then so be it. I know Mr. Knox out there as well.
I mean, if I'm reading this, it's not just directly the chain of command, it goes around the chain of command to third party if necessary as legal counsel. I mean, that's how I'm reading this. So I guess I'm just a little confused on the objection, or just I'm just a little confused on the dialogue. Well, I mean, I was interpreting this as that's kind of what they're, you complain to your superior. If you have a problem with a co-equal, you go to an immediate superior of your superior, which would be the constitutional officer. Obviously, they have to give that chain of command, and the only remedy, I guess, would be the law director's office and or an ethics and conduct committee. You know, if you needed a biased third party outside of a constitutional officer, but again, as a constitutional officer, we don't have any authority or control, and that's just that's the quandary. I mean, but like we can hear something, and there can be a grievance, but I don't. I don't see this not fulfilling that, so that's why I'm a little confused. I don't see this not fulfilling that.
Just that each of the, and I don't know, we're going back and forth in the queue, but I've got a thought on it.
Go ahead.
So, it's just that each of these paragraphs, it ends with, said supervisors to review the complaint, weigh its merits, and either mediate a resolution, take appropriate action, or escalate. You know, that said supervisor, it doesn't seem to be, unless I'm missing it, that if, and maybe this cannot be done, if the employee does not feel, you know, some clause that says if the employee does not feel that resolution is achieved, they can X. And whatever X is, if it's to go to the law department, if it's to go to the ethics committee, I don't know, and maybe there isn't a way to do it. That's the quandary. That's larger.
At the end of the day, I believe Mr. Hyde's summation is pretty accurate. I just need an opportunity to get something resolved, if at all possible, as a last-ditch effort before I suit up. That's it, because at the end of the day, a lot of these areas I can't control. I can offer some solutions. I can try to be some sort of, if it's a constitutional position, be some sort of sounding board. Say maybe if we do this, we can. Everybody's happy and it's resolved. But that's what the final intent of this is put out the brush fires.
My issue is, you know, we've seen how many whistleblowers have come forward in the federal government, how they've been treated. While I was in the military, I had those issues whenever I went up the chain. And, I mean, you do something like that, you're a traitor. You're blackballed, whatever. And it gets really bad for that individual at that point. Now, that's where either some kind of protection or some kind of, and here we're looking at constitutional officers. They have ultimate authority over their section. Same kind of situation. And they need some kind of outlet as far as this goes, or protection, one or the other, whenever they do bring these complaints, because I'm sure they're going to get blackballed real quick within their section, whatever governmental office that they're working for. Happens at the school board too. So that's my concern is whenever somebody does bring that complaint, what are we going to do to make sure that they are protected?
Sure. I mean, right now we have nothing in place. It's a step, and so this is why it's kind of explained, Commissioner.
I think the attorney has pretty well said what I was saying, and that he understands that these people have a different role if they're an employee of a constitutional officer. And what makes county government even worse to deal with is that not everybody is in that basket. If you're an EMS employee, is in a constitutional office. So I think we would be wise to not very, very far from what the attorney has suggested here, because he understands what we're dealing with and is wanting just to, I think, try to get information to keep us from harm's way legally. And if we go much further than that, we may be shot out of the water in several different directions.
So I've got it.
You're going to make a motion?
I am, but I don't see
No, we have some more.
I have a question about this, because when we're dealing with all the whistleblowers and things, has there been any address to maybe having a hotline? Like when I worked for HCA, we had a hotline that you called and you could file complaints. You went to the judicial side of the HCA, like the attorneys that they did the conduct and all that, and then that complaint was funneled to the wrong person, and so that way it would go either to the constitutional clause, or it would come down to the minutes, and you funnel to the right people, and then that person, the law office, would, validate whether that was resolved. Because I personally was involved in an issue with HBA, and I had to file a, code of conduct complaint, and it was about assault. And so it went from the top, and it came down to my manager, and then it was reviewed, and then it went back up to them. So have we thought about anything like that? And that's all I had to ask.
I'm gonna make a motion. Okay, but motion. So I'm gonna make a motion to add the following language, which in my view kind of solves it.
Is there a spot you want to add?
Yeah, it would be right before be it further resolved. And it was saying, it's
After complaint to the law director?
after complaints to the law director, it's a new clause, and it would be escalation by aggrieved employee. And it would read, should an employee, having taken and documented steps to resolve an issue through the above measures, not find redress for a particular complaint, that employee may take the issue at hand to either the law director's office or the Sumner County Ethics Committee. So the idea is, they have, like I think we were saying here, you have to use the chain of command first, which is, I keep going back to the military, but you do this in the business world too. You take it up your chain first, you attempt that, you actually have to document it. You can't just skip that and go directly to the law office. And then, if after trying that, you don't find redress, you have your choice. You can go to the ethics committee, or you can go to the law office. That's my motion.
Can I ask a question on that before let's get a second first? Second from Commissioner Brown. So, go ahead.
So, everything seems really straightforward on this resolution. I mean, I don't think it seems, I like what you're saying, but it seems like it almost says the same thing. Because if you look at, we don't bring in the ethics committee, and that might be a good thing to put in there, but, so I mean, just if it's a subordinate or an equal peer, they complain to their immediate supervisor. That seems like common, normal, workplace etiquette or military. And then if you go through the if it's a complaint against your immediate supervisor, you go to the supervisor of the person to whom the employee has a complaint. So you go one step above. You just kind of escalate it. And then your supervisory staff, if you have somebody that's supervisor, but they're not their direct supervisor, you go and it's their department head. And then the law director is who you go to if you have I skipped one. If you have a problem with someone, an official. Sorry, I skipped one there. If you have a problem with an official, you go to chairman. And then if you have a problem with the law director, you go with the law director, you go to the chairman. If you have a problem with an official, you go to the law director. And so, I feel like it feels resolved there. And I would like to just finish this off by asking if the law director would weigh in and say, is there any benefit to putting that resolution in? Does it change it enough to, does it mess up anything legality-wise for the employee or for the, you understand, protecting the employee as well?
To me, that additional clause would create a situation to where I'm trying to marshal something I have absolutely no control over. I'm trying to rein in something. I'm trying to create a solution where the constitutional office side of things says, we've done what we're going to do. This is it. There's nothing I can do for them.
Yeah. That was what I was worried about, muddying the water. That's why I bring that up.
I like this. And going with what Commissioner Show's amendment is, the fact, and kind of addressing Commissioner, I think, Janong's statement, is if, like say, in the form of sexual harassment or harassment of a constitutional officer.
Right.
So the next step to me would be legal, because the next step beyond that is a lawsuit. And so if you're trying to mitigate that damage, it makes sense to me in that sense. That's why it's almost like, I understand what Commissioner Schiff's going with this as far as like all roads lead to the law director's office is basically as far as like a final stopgap before court. It's basically, I mean, that's kind of your intent here, but I think you're just trying to clarify that and spell that out as far as there's a little vagueness. I was interpreting all these as roads leading to law directors, but it's not explicitly stated. So that was the issue of the vagueness I think that the committee has. And so that's where it makes sense with Commissioner Schiff's amendment for just the fact of addressing constitutional officer when the buck stops, based on what Commissioner Teacher said, it really doesn't stop, because then there's a legal recourse remedy, which are trying to mitigate that damage from that and try to bring parity to the situation. So it makes sense to me, so I don't have any questions.
Just to clarify what I was stating though, is there are complaints that are illegal issues, like it's not a harassment or something like that. So I believe that there's nothing that we can write or not write. If it's something illegal or unethical, it would go straight to the law director's office, no matter what. I mean, just by that's what would happen, But if it's a non-harassment, assault, law-breaking issue, like I don't like working with so and so, then does that? Because if we write this way and they don't like it, and they go through that full course, and that winds up being where it's like, well, I don't like sitting beside Jeremy Mansfield in the commission meetings, and I go straight to that ethics.
Matt, would you mind restating your amendment?
Yes, and I got a little bit of feedback from the law director's office here. So I'm going to make a slight change to what I said earlier. So it's a new clause that says escalation by aggrieved employee. Should an employee, having taken and documented steps to resolve an issue, not find redress for a particular complaint, that employee may take the issue at hand to the law director's office. So the idea is, it works with everything else. Everything else is in place. And it just tells the employee, look, if you're not, it's not saying the law director can address it. I mean, it's not giving him any guarantees whatsoever. It's just saying, look, if you are unhappy with what your chain of command has done, you have the option to go to the law director's office. And that's your first part of it. That's it.
Commissioner Brown?
Well, and these first three do not address that.
That's right.
Correct. Pointed out, and that's why.
That's why I
That's no problem. Commissioner Fun?
I have two questions. The first would be, because I've not seen a total organizational chart of the county, does every employee ultimately fall underneath the constitutional elected official? No.
Everyone.
Well, they will eventually.
Eventually, they.
Okay.
Well, actually, everyone except for the law department and finance. Law department and finance will fall under the commission's authority.
And that's 24 system.
Yeah.
Okay, so question number two, and I certainly don't want to make this any harder than it needs to be, but should there be two situations, one for employees falling under a constitutional, the elected official, and one for the non?
Can't. I mean, that's the whole point.
Can't do that.
That's our problem. I mean, that's what Chairman Hyde was referring to. That's what this is at least trying to give a sounding board, at least a sounding board, so that the aggrieved can have a chance to at least go to somebody in a legal position within the county who will ultimately handle anything that is going to be a problem.
Whereas we have nothing.
No.
We made the choice, and again, it was the right choice, in my opinion, to, for all the right reasons, to remove the HR function. But this chunk of an HR function, how do we deal with employees who have issues? We need it's righteous to put this up. We need some SOP for it, and a way for employees to at least attempt to have a sounding board or some redress outside of their immediate chain of command. even if it can't ultimately be resolved. Chairman,
It doesn't really change anything, because what they're going to be doing, if this passes, is no different than what personnel was doing, and there was no more authority one way or the other, absolutely none. And incidentally, I just, off the cuff here, I can't remember exactly, it's either the assessor of property or trustee is not a constitutional officer.
Assessor of property.
That was one of the two, well, I'll check that out, but it doesn't matter, but what we said is true. If it's a constitutional officer, it's dealt with entirely different.
Yeah, both are constitutional.
Are they? There is a person that I thought was, and
Highway superintendent. Road superintendent.
no,
constitutional?
No.
really?
Yeah.
Well, let's not get
I'm
off
positive.
this
Yeah. I'm positive of that, because that was, I read that in the state documentation.
There you go. All right, any further discussion on this item? So, all in favor, say aye.
And this is the amendment?
This is your amendment to the vote of Commissioner Schiff's amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We're going to incorporate that. That's correct. That's part of the, we'll consider that part of the, passing this resolution, so we need that on full commission.
Do we need to vote on the?
Go ahead and make a motion. We already had a motion on the floor.
Well, we had a motion for discussion, right?
We did, so.
So I'll move to pass this.
Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brown, motion by Commissioner Schiff, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item C, resolution establish team for judicial magistrate appointments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution D is grant review. This was a resolution that, actually, Chairman Hyde had brought up, and I think it's something I think is good for us to have some type of governor on this process. I know there have been grants that have come up that we have not accepted based on because we didn't have a chance to really look at the conditions of it. I know there was problems with timing of the water line grant being provided in a timely manner to the law director's office for review of over 1,000-page contract that we've seen emails on. So I think the spirit and intent of this resolution is basically prior to submitting for any type of grant process, it's kind of like we need to know what come to us first, and let's get the horse before the cart, and not do things backwards, and just apply for a grant and say, hey, we got to pass this grant, and have a week to think about it and read it and approve it, and it's an emergency. So that happens a lot in this county. I think that's the spirit of what this is trying to do, and so moved. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. The next one was a resolution protecting children. This was something that somebody in Knox County actually passed and reached out to me about, asking if Sumner County would consider passing a version of this as well, just as a statement of a coalition of counties. And this is important. I did print out a couple of pages from some of these recent books that the school board, our new school board members have been challenging, some successfully and some unsuccessfully, such as The Blue Sky, What Girls Are Made Of, Perks of a Wallflower. And I just printed those out. I'm not going to read these or have Commissioner Brown read these. But this is just so you can know. But, you know, the part about this resolution, and there's a lot of data in here about, the part of this resolution that stuck out to me, and I posted something from school board member Andy Lacey, that it was a statement that he made a couple weeks ago at a school board meeting about this book called The Bluest Eye. And, you know, if you're looking at this resolution, there's a middle whereas, it says, whereas the exposure to and normalization of sexualized behaviors reduces children's inhibitions and ability to protect themselves from the sexual advances of others. And this Bluest Eyes basically has a lot of inferences and story of about a pedophile and how he basically targets little girls with candy and ice cream in order to. And so, I mean, this doesn't need to be in our schools. It doesn't need to be it's this kind of stuff. And so, but when you look, the reason why is when you look at sex trafficking, you
look at grooming, and you look at pedophilia and pornography, and you've all seen Sound of Freedom probably by now, seen that movie, and seen the hypersexualization of our culture. When you desensitize kids to that, it's going to make them more easily prey and susceptible to these behaviors and patterns. So there's a lot of data from the TBI and Tennessee Department of Health on here about sexual violence and sex trafficking and rape and sexual assault, which I think are important statistics. But it's just something that is just, I'm appalled when I hear these things being read aloud in the school board, or it literally made me want to have a visceral reaction of wanting to be sick to my stomach, just even listening to Member Lacey read this content that it's right in front of you right here. And so, you want to talk about today? This is September Mental Health Month. Came before us to celebrate this month with Mental Health Month in August, and you look at issues that young people and adolescents, prepubescent children are having, and kids going through puberty are having with mental health issues due to the negative effects of social media. It's also, to me, it affects the media, and part of that to me is the hypersexualization of things. And when you have this just insane mental illness in children of this gender dysphoria, and boys thinking that they're girls and girls thinking they're boys, and you can't help but point back to, again, the normalization of abnormal sexualized behaviors. And this is kind of what we're dealing with as a societal breakdown. What qualifies as community standards? And I think it's important, for us as community leaders to address these things. And this is just, again, standing with sister counties, such as Knox County, the very large county in the state. This is something that they put forward, and that was asked to put forward here, so I don't think there's any objection to this, but I kind of want to explain just, and why I printed these things out, these three, the bluest eye, what girls are made of, and the personal wallflower. Personal wallflower was voted to keep this in the school, and the bluest eye, the director has refused to take action on it so far, to my knowledge. What girls are made of got removed only because of Commissioner Stephen King having addressed it on social media, and magically the next day, it just disappeared, and they were taking care of it. So, unfortunately, they have to do that undue pressure. But once parents are made aware of this, it just has no business in our schools and taxpayer dollars paying for this stuff. Make a motion, we adopt. Motion by Commissioner Teacher.
Second by Commissioner Show.
All right, discussion.
So I've got a couple thoughts here, and I'll try to address them quickly. So the first one is, and I read this, but most of the time when I see a resolution or any kind of law that says Save the Children or the Patriot Act, things like that, I'm like, danger. It's going to be doing something that's going to more encroachment, which is bad. But that's not what this does. It actually is kind of the opposite. It says we're going to take funding away. We're not going to put more funding towards something. We're going to take funding away if you do X. So that is reassuring in and of itself. But that leads me to my question here. How hard, maybe the question is, how hard are we willing to go here, right? Like, let's say that, and there's no need to read any of this verbiage that is written here, but, we have an opinion on it. Schools keep it. This resolution says we won't apply any funding. Does that mean that we're going to withhold the school budget? And if we try to do that, will it, will, we just get crushed? A lawsuit? Some of this stuff, if you interpret Tennessee code strictly, lots of material that could be found objectionable is sitting on the shelf right now, right? And so, maybe we have grounds to say, hey, we're going to withhold funding. But the question is, my only concern with this is I don't like putting something to paper if we're not going to actually do it. It was my biggest complaint with the Republicans who recently went up and put a gun to the full faith and credit of the United States, and they did nothing. They did nothing, got nothing, and just looked stupid because they just folded. If we sign this resolution, we're going to go to the max for it. That's my question.
Commissioner Brown, if you think.
whatever, I mean, I know, again, like I say, it's an up or down vote on the budget. We do have the budget requests and things like that, but a lot of this stuff has been pushed by the American Library Association. And one of the things that I've asked them to do is go with the International Library Association, which is a conservative organization. Missouri, Commissioner Boyd has put on the table about we need to probably pressure our General Assembly to adopt what Missouri has. They had to go through each one of these libraries with the librarian and a lawyer to make sure that all of those books were pulled out. We have no teeth. We have no teeth in our state law. That's the problem.
Commissioner Hunt.
Commissioner Brown is exactly right, and having served as a director of schools, well, first of all, let me say that a school board member shared with me the blue-eyed excerpts, and what you have here is mild compared to what was in there. Unbelievable that anything like that would be in the schools, and I have shared it with at least 25 other people, and let them read it, and they were horrified when they read the excerpts from this. But the truth of the matter is, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we cannot, that we cannot win, and you cannot withdraw funds unless something has changed drastically in the 20 years that I was there. You cannot withdraw funds from or direct the school system how to spend their money. Maybe one or two cases in the state of Tennessee that were decided where it said that you could have some leverage in large categories, and by that large categories I mean things like instructional material that includes a whole gamut of items under it, or administrative. But even at that was only one or two cases, and in most case law in the state of Tennessee, we either fund the school system or we don't fund it, period. And that's what it comes down to. And then if we don't fund the school system, probably the state's going to come in and direct us to do that. So I think Commissioner Brown is right that maybe we should send some kind of firm resolution, and that we do not want our money spent on material like this, and then look for some teeth elsewhere that we can attack this. It needs to be. We've got to get this material out of the schools.
And just to answer your question, Commissioner Schover, on the be it further resolved, when it talks about the allocation of county staff or resources to these things, this to me does not apply to the schools, because TCA is very clear that you cannot reduce the funding or take away the funding from the schools. And this is, for example, the 2A resolution that put forward in 2020. This is not where you're seeing a constitutional officer actually violate the Constitution of the United States of America and the Tennessee State Constitution, and where we're trying to apply the doctrine of lesser magistrates to a situation of not funding, because I had that clause in there as well. This to me is not an apples to apples comparison, in my opinion. It's an apples to oranges. So this is talking about this. County staff or resources shall be allocated activity, programs, events, content, or institutions that support, normalize, and encourages sexualization of children and youth. So when you look at this, to me is relegated to what we as a county are controlling, such as our county libraries. We can do that, or any county program. Somebody wants to do something and have. We're not going to fund, any public displays of like Home Depot does in their parades that they used to, with all the bonded stuff. I mean, we're not. So I mean, that to me is a little bit different. So I don't interpret it the way you guys are interpreting this as far as the language, because the TCA is clear on that, and we can't withhold funding from the schools for this. But I do like the idea of, if you want to, open amendments, but this is, again, this is a template, that's what we're discussing. but you're talking about something else new, they're adding addendums and stage and reading this up.
Yeah, that's where I think we need to go. We need to put something in there that says basically what the Missouri law says, or at least encourage our General Assembly to adopt something like that, because we've got our hands tied right now. And I have already, I was going to show our floor up there, the Board of Education about the blues. Now, that was on the American Library Association's 10 most protested books. That's where I found it. And there was a bunch of other ones that we have. But that one was prevalent throughout the high school system. And I found a good 30 books, you know, that are in our system.
I believe there's nothing wrong with what you're saying. I just think it's a different resolution. I think there's a time and place for that, and that's wonderful, but I'm sorry, I will correct you. But I think that it sums up so much in this. It's a good step forward because it said the last paragraph is, be it further resolved, the board encourages individuals and communities to promote the good and the honorable to children rather than the normalization of sexual behaviors, protecting the health and well-being of our children and the future of our county. There is not one citizen that I've spoken to who would not support that in my district. I mean, I can confidently say, I mean, that's exactly, and I can't think of one school employee or teacher or parent who wouldn't support that either. So I feel like I like what you're saying, it's just those are two different things.
Commissioner Shepard.
I'm going to offer a very, very small amendment that I think at least helps.
You want to add that at the very end, or?
It's going to be, it's a part of the be it further resolved.
Which one? The one that you were mentioning,
Right, the be it further resolved, comma, and here's where the amendment will come in. Consistent with applicable Tennessee code, comma, no county staff, blah, 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 blah. So it's basically, we're acknowledging we're not going to step outside of our authority here. And everything else, I think, follows just fine. That would be my amendment.
Got a second? Second by Commissioner Teacher, motion by Commissioner Chauvin, that amendment to this. And I'm going to restate the amendment. Be it further resolved, comma, consistent with the applicable Tennessee code, comma, no county staff or resources, et cetera, shall be allocated. Yep.
Should be codes. I know that's particular.
I'm fine with that.
Code is fine.
Code is fine?
Code is fine.
Leave it code.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other discussion on the main motion? Would you, I've heard questions about sending something, so maybe, if anybody, maybe encourage you, if you could bring back to us next month as a resolution and work with legal, and then we can agenda that as far as taking that step further and asking the General Assembly to take action. But this is just a good faith estimate, so, on the main motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, guys. All right, item F, discussion resolution 1504-02, clarifying ownership, routine maintenance, support services, and funding for the Hendersonville Library. I'll make open the floor for discussion, or a motion for discussion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, this was, pretty, my apologies, it was not included, some of the email chain as far as specifically what the law director said. That was my oversight, so I'm going to apologize on this. In my opinion, based on what the law director said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that resolution, and it's not in here, again, my apologies, that resolution is not included, I don't think. It talked about, and we can move this to next month if we need to, basically that the county and the city of Hendersonville share major, if there's a big problem, such as an AC unit goes out and is directed to Hendersonville, that the county and Hendersonville share. But when the resolution was written, this resolution was that any maintenance, routine maintenance, et cetera, would be the responsibility of Hendersonville for this library. And in the case of what the county mayor took care of us for their HVAC issue, that was a routine maintenance issue of not being taken care of, in my opinion. And I think that's something that we should send a bill to the city of Hendersonville for taken care of. I don't feel they met their obligation on this item. Again, my apologies, I thought the resolution was in here, that was my oversight. I know you're not reading the resolution.
I move to defer just because it's a
All
little
right. Got a motion to defer by Commissioner Jones, is there a second by Commissioner, Hyde? Is there any discussion? Any questions? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're gonna move the item F under old business for next. All right, item G, Mr. Chairman. Yes. County Mayor?
Pardon the interruption, but I did want to get some direction on this as I replied to Alicia Neighbors, who is the library director. She has a sprinkler system that is missing from the building, part of it, and wants to get that resolved. And also, the elevator is out. Should I send her a message back that that is the responsibility of the city?
I mean, technically it is, but I don't want to leave them in the lurch and not take care of it.
But, yeah.
I mean, my position is, you know, I would prefer to take care of it and bill Hendersonville for it if we have to. As far as, I don't, that's just, I'm just whiteboarding here, verbal whiteboarding. I don't want to cause any delay or any issues.
I'll make a motion. Well, here's what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman. Take this up in budget, and in budget, authorize that and send a bill to the city of Hendersonville.
That would be.
And we'll do it in budget.
I mean, I think that.
We want to take care of it.
I'll do that.
We want to take care of them, but again, addressing the fact that Hendersonville is not taking care of them. And that's part of the agreement. Again, we have other issues where Hendersonville's not paying their share. Okay, we'll do that in budget. Item G is, this is a resolution a citizen actually requested that we do.
Just to go farm?
Just to go farm.
So moved.
Any about second?
Well, I second it, but I'd like to discuss it so that people know what this is, because it wasn't on the agenda.
Yes.
They need to know what it is.
All right, so we got a motion for approval, and then we got a second, so I'll open for discussion. I'll just finish what I'm saying. That basically, I didn't have this in time, obviously, for the agenda came out, because a newspaper article came out around that time. The citizen brought this up. But basically, this is essentially, since the developer has basically stopped the project, it makes sense that any agreements for the tax incremental financing that the commission might have approved based on that old plan, which is now not moving forward, that be rescinded, and should that project come back forward to the commission, a new agreement should come, and that is only, I think that is good business. So that is the crux of why this is happening. It's because of, we're just responding to what is being said out in the public and what was being reported. So it makes sense to rescind that original resolution from February 18th, 2022 on this TIF. And so we have a motion.
I'll let you on a drummer.
Can I get,
Okay, sure.
I was just gonna say that, you were first.
You go ahead.
I just want to ask, would it be okay, just because, I mean, I had several people say something about this, and were upset about the gold farm, so I know how my constituents feel. I feel like that it just feels appropriate that anyone watching online or anybody here would actually know what it is. Either, can we either pass it out, or could you read at least portions of it or something, whatever we can get through, because I feel like it will be the most responsible.
I'll read it.
As representatives. Thank you.
Resolution to County Commission of Sumner County, Tennessee, rescinding Resolution 2202-03, approving the economic impact plan of the Shoot Lane development area. Whereas the owners of Old Hickory Hockey LLC announced September the 5th, 2023, an indefinite pause on the project planned in conjunction with Sabertooth Sports and Entertainment, owned and operated by the National Predators subsidiary Predators Holdings, and whereas the 100,000 square foot ice center, retail and restaurant space, residential units, other entertainment, and a hotel were planned as part of the Shoot Lane development area, otherwise known as the Goat Farm, and whereas passage of Resolution 2202-03 by the Sumner County Board of Commissioners on February 28, 2022, approved an economic development plan that permitted certain tax increment incentives to pay or finance eligible costs pursuant to Chapter 53, Title 7, Tennessee Code annotated, and whereas the value of the tax increment incentives were stated at the time to be over $40 million over a 30-year period, and whereas no portion of the economic development plan has yet been implemented since the passage of Resolution 2202-03, and the project has now been placed on an indefinite pause by the project developer, and whereas any restart or changes to the original plan by the project developer wouldn't necessarily require a completely new plan for consideration by the Sumner County Board of Commissioners. Therefore, be it resolved by the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners meeting in regular session on this, the 18th day of September 2023, that this body does hereby rescind all previous actions and resolutions, excepting for any approved development plans that have accrued a vested property right, including but not limited to Resolution 2022-03, and be it further resolved that any previous resolutions of this body in conflict with this resolution are hereby repealed, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective upon passage of the public welfare requiring it. Mr. Schultz.
So, I just want to get in queue here and state a couple things. I'll probably state them on the floor. Just some facts. One, this plan, the developer is pulling out first. The developer is putting this on a, so we have not forced anybody's hand. We have held true to the agreements that the previous commission agreed to, which I don't think this commission would have agreed to, but we have held true to it. We have put this is them pulling out and us immediately taking action appropriately.
For the TIF.
That's correct, for the TIF only. Second, because I am going to say this was I could have said many times that I'm very different when it comes to commercial development than I am residential development. This was commercial development. But you have to consider each of them on an individual basis, and this was a really bad spot. It's a really bad spot. Shoots Lane is on the edge of my district. I travel down there all the time. It's right across from elementary school. The road itself would very quickly become unpassable with any additional traffic. And I think what has probably, this is me guessing and speculating, but I think the developer probably figured all of that out as they got in and started really digging on what they were going to have to do to make this thing viable. This is just an example of one of these things which looked great in a PowerPoint presentation, and it was not a good idea. There are a lot of good places I'm sure that we can find in Hendersonville. I hope we can find for something like this. Love to find it. That spot was not it. So I'm very happy to be the person who moved to remove this TIF.
I'll just say, my problem, and I did about 5 different posts about this after just recapping and there's a lot of detail in my opinions out there very succinctly. But the county mayor at that meeting said that this project could have been done without TIF. And that was stated from the floor by the previous county mayor. Additionally, the TIF was stated it was needed for high-density residential development. It was not, that's why they wanted the TIF. It had nothing to do with the commercial, it had nothing to do with the Ice Center or Hockery. And so that was something I was opposed at the time. I voted against it. But it's again, all your points are well taken. I won't elaborate any more on that.
So, because I was not involved in any of this, I have not heard about much of anything. Half of that property is in the city of Gallatin, and half of it is county.
No, it's 3 entities. A little bit of Hendersonville, a little bit of county,
Yeah.
a little bit of Gallatin.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of Gallatin.
Maintaining the roads is, I'm not over, but it's a problem.
So was it going to be annexed by any particular entity?
It was rezoned in 2021, which I voted against as well, and the citizens came out and spoke pretty passionately against it. As far as for that area, it's a wrong project for the wrong area. Greenlee Boulevard would be great for this. Anywhere else, I mean, Greenlee Boulevard, why Gallatin wants to build 1 million apartments out there versus do something like this, beyond my understanding, but that's a perfect place for it. And so, because of access, accessibility, the infrastructure is there. But I just find it curious if this kind of
So what we're doing here is it's all off the table.
That's right. Yes. And if the project re-kicks back, they have to come before the commission again for any kind of deal, if there's any kind of help needed for a commercial.
Okay.
Moderator.
Just to clear this up, because I know y'all are going a bunch of different directions on it. I've been involved with a little bit of this, and I may have been the reason it finally died, is because I got involved with the IDB, and this was a huge project for them. And my understanding from talking to that board is this was not drafted well from inception. The TIF was always structured wrong. So this is a completely a financial issue. Everything else really doesn't didn't matter to them at the time. They just cannot get anything together. So this whole resolution is just merely making sure, just like they've done, we're killing everything, and they're gonna have to start over and resubmit everything because nothing was done correctly, is my understanding from the other side.
Any more discussion? We have to have a couple more things.
My last thing, that was exactly what, just to reiterate, the folks in my district were not upset about the hockey rink, they were upset about the tip. And that just wanted to clarify, that when I said that, well, I didn't clarify, I wanted to make sure.
Well, there were a lot of people upset about the location of that, which it was a terrible location. It shouldn't have been there. It's a great idea. Everybody wants to see it, and it brings the ball.
The location wasn't as big of a deal for my people because they weren't there, you know what I mean, but it was the tip that really bothered me so much.
I heard from a lot of people on the location.
Oh, I know. I
was here. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Next item was the, resolution for basically asking the Resource Authority to hold the meetings at the Sumner County Administration Building. My understanding is it moved to a room that basically you can't even get like,
Too small.
yeah, too small. Gumby couldn't fit in there sideways, so, but
Well, I mean,
it's got a
Eric,
motion. I'll take a motion.
Stephen, and I, and,
I'll make a motion to approve. Second, all right, go ahead, Bob.
well, like I say, it's unheard of why they wanted to move back over there. But there again, I think that if they're wanting to do things in the corner, that's where they want to go. But we've got to show the transparency of what they're doing, because they've got too much money. They've got millions of dollars that, they're talking about. And, again, we need to, look at other major cities, Millersville, Portland, Westmoreland, all those, White House, and rework the thing to where possibly we could do, county pickup. Instead of just giving them $100,000, give something for it, at least.
Sure. Well, we're gonna keep it on the merits of this meeting time, so Commissioner Shevin.
Call the question.
Well, you know, any more discussion? Okay. Call the question, you got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, main motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to group and approve everything under 11.
Oh,
aye, sorry.
Thank you, Lieutenant, for the solo. This is, Commissioner, Klein had asked me to put this back on, so I'm.
Move to approve.
What?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, discussion? Commissioner Klein.
I just want to say that there are some facts that were missed in the county commission meeting last month. There has been a study done that the mayor brought on a consultant. Their estimate is 1.9 million, and then when you add in their architectural fees, we're talking about 2 million. Now, I'm looking at sheriffs around the room, and in the next meeting, we're going to be talking about raises. The possibility, and this is a non-binding letter of intent, that we might be able to save $2 million in getting a free roof with solar arrays on it for the next 25 years. It would be taken care of by the investment group. That $2 million would go a long way in paying wages or increasing wages. There's everything to gain and nothing to be lost. And I was fairly stunned when it failed last commission meeting, and I don't think we're going to have a problem here, but I will go into greater detail if necessary at the commission meeting. There is no reason on earth that we don't move forward and at least explore the possibilities of saving $2 million of taxpayers' money and then use it for raises or whatever we need to do, but there's no reason to pass on that.
Mr. Shevin.
I'm just going to note that it's very likely that I will vote against this when it actually comes up, but I agree with you. I mean, in my view, they have a very high bar to clear. But, no reason, it's non-binding. We made amendments to make it extremely non-binding, maybe even like redundantly so, because you made fun of me if I recall, but I'm not aware.
Yes, that's correct.
So, I mean, no reason not to look at it.
Is this the one that we made amendments to last month? Is this the same one that we made it to the floor? Okay.
I think
favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So, Commissioner, Hyde is opposed, so you got one no. So, we'll need to put this back forward in the commission packet, the same information we had last month to support this.
Now motion to group and approve everything under 11.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brown, motion by Commissioner Show, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Items 12A and B are both for docketing purposes only. These are both first readings for, county zoning, question one, the annexation under zoning, so, the motion to docket next month. Second, Commissioner Klein, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to adjourn, Commissioner Teacher.